All right, Rome is in the books, and Carlos Alcaraz has taken the title over Yannick Sinner. Now, with that on the record, I'd like to talk about the 4 men that definitely can win the French Open 2025. We'll talk about a few others that are contenders but aren't in my top 4. So let's look ahead to the French Open, recap a bit of this Rome final between Sinner and Alcaraz, and talk about who the serious players are heading into the French. This is the slice presented by Betway. Thanks for being here. Let's go. All right. Well, we got what we were asking for in Sinner versus Alcaraz in the final of Roma in Italy, with the Italian crowd supporting Sinner to no avail because Alcaraz comes back really from the brink of losing the first set to win the match and win his, get the last Masters 1000 on clay that he hadn't won. He's won. So now he's won the French Open and all the Masters on clay. Obviously, nothing more needs to be said about his greatness. And I think he solidifies himself now going into the French Open as the favorite. Betway, the slices presented by Betway, had Sinner as a favorite in Rome, but I thought that wasn't really smart. And I said that before in our preview, and that turned out to be the case. It was, very slight, but I do think Alcaraz, with the more play under his belt, it showed in that final. The big moment in the first set when Sinner had to break or set to break Alcaraz's serve. He wasn't able to find it. Missed the return, then missed the backhand. In the big moments, you get more comfortable, I think. And again, this is just at the margins when you've been playing. And Sinner hasn't been playing like Alcaraz has. So Alcaraz wins Rome, sets himself up as a favorite, I think, for the French Open. He'll go into the French Open as the number 2 seed. Sinner will be number 1. They'll be on opposite sides of the draw. And I think for everyone else, like those are the 2 guys that have, I would say, between 80 and a 90% chance of winning the tournament is going to be one of those 2 guys. But in my mind, there's 4 players that can win the tournament. I know they can, or I believe they can. And then there's 3 players that could. So I'll do those at the end. But here's my 4 players that definitely can win the French Open 2025. Obviously, Yannick Sinner. He's one of them. He's the number 1 player in the world. He's won 3 majors now, and he is the Australian Open champion, and he's, over the last 12 months, has been the best player on the ATP Tour, bar none, because he's obviously ranked number 1 in the world. But the question, I guess, is can he win a major on the natural surfaces? Because he's won all 3 of his so far at or on hard courts. 2 Australian Opens, 1 US Open. Yeah, he made the semifinals of last year at the French Open, lost to Alcaraz, obviously. But that's pretty deep to be at the French Open, and he's won majors before. So to me, there's no question if he can win this tournament this year. It's more like if he can beat Carlos Alcaraz in the final. It's not guaranteed for him to play him. If he makes the final, it's not guaranteed that he'd play Carlos Alcaraz in the final, because that's a whole other thing. Looking at their head-to-head, let me just pull that up. The head-to-head just got a little worse for Sinner versus Alcaraz. So Alcaraz is now 7-4, winning their last 4 matches. So if we're talking about that, is that a thing that Sinner will be snake bitten by going forward? Yannick Sinner versus Alcaraz, the tables have turned a bit, and it's 4-0 in the last 4 matches, going back all of 2024 and 2025 so far for Alcaraz. The last major they played at was Roland Garros, and it was a 5-setter. So it's not like these matches haven't been close. But it seems like Sinner, as the number 1 player in the world, the only guy he's consistently lost to is Alcaraz. So Sinner can win. Alcaraz could definitely stop him. So obviously Sinner's one of my guys who can win. Alcaraz, obviously another guy who can win because he has won it before. He's proven that he's the best player on clay in the world by winning Monte Carlo, and Rome. So yeah, don't even need to elaborate that. Carlos Alcaraz can win the French Open 2025. Newsflash. So now it gets weird, right? Because I think most people think those are the only two real contenders, and I would pretty much agree with that. Like, if I had to say what players could win the French Open, that wouldn't surprise me. It would be those two guys. Everyone else would be a surprise, but I think these two other players can win as well. Starting with the number 3 seed, Sasha Zverev. Why do I think he can win? Well, he was in the final last year. Losing to Carlos Alcaraz. He made the semifinals the previous 3 years, but going back to 2021, he's been to 9 major semifinals, 4 of them at the French Open. So he's proven over time and time again that he can do well at this tournament. And winning a major actually doesn't come down to being for sure able to beat every other player in the draw. You just have to beat who's in front of you. So it's not guaranteed to beat Alcaraz or Sinner. He'll probably have to play one of them or two if he was going to win, but he might not. And the fact that he's been to these late stages of the French Open that many times, to me, proves that he can win. And I don't think, the question's always been, when will he get his first? When will he get his first? The pressure he puts on himself seems to have held him back in the past. It might do that again, but I do think he's got too much game, too much talent to not win a major in his lifetime. And I think at the French Open, he has as good of a chance as any, because of the physicality in his game, and his range of weapons that lend themselves well to the clay. So he's going to have to play brave. He'd have to play the bravest he's ever played throughout 7 matches. But if he can do that, I believe he can win the French Open. Now, the fourth player that I have that can win, I believe, is Casper Ruud. And yes, he just got slaughtered at 6-0, 6-1 by Jannik Sinner in Roma. But that's Roma. He won Madrid. Casper Ruud did. And he's been to the Roland Garros French Open final twice. So he's been there, lost to Nadal and Djokovic. Can you blame him? I can't. But he's gotten there twice. He's also been in the U.S. Open final. So what does that prove? That proves that he can get to the finals of a major. And the only thing left to do there is win. So yeah, he could be playing Alcaraz or Sinner in the final. If he's playing Alcaraz, it's tough, but you put yourself in a position to win. You can do it. You never know. But he, like I said, like with Zverev, you don't have to play either of those guys in the final. The draw could blow up. Those guys could go out early. And if they do, there's going to be guys like Zverev and Casper Ruud who have done it before. Get to the final of majors before, where a lot of the other players who are highly ranked haven't. And I think Casper Ruud has the game, the clay court game and gravitas to win 7 matches in a row at the French Open, potentially cause a big upset versus someone like Sinner or Alcaraz. I don't think it's impossible. Definitely not Sinner on Roland Garros, on Philippe Chatrier. So I think Casper is the fourth guy who I think can win it this year. Again, would be surprised if it was Zverev or Casper Ruud, but I think they can win it. Here's 3 players who could win it. I don't think they will, but I think they could. Djokovic is my first pick there because he's won 24 majors. So I don't think I really need to explain myself at all there. If he's in the draw, he has a chance to win. I don't think he will, based on the level we've seen so far in 2025. But it would be remiss of me to not give him the respect he deserves. The other player is Lorenzo Musetti. I've been super impressed with him on the clay so far in Monte Carlo, making the final, playing Alcaraz, semifinal in Madrid, semifinal in Roma, arguably the second best clay player of this clay court swing. And he's made semifinal at Wimbledon. He hasn't proven he can win 6 matches yet at a major, but he's got a second child on the way. I believe it was just introduced or announced on Instagram, and he's already got a child. So he's got dad strength, and he's getting his game more and more physical for the big stage. And I think based on the level he's shown, the only guys that he's not kind of better than on the clay, I would say, and especially over 5 sets, is Alcaraz and Sinner. So you don't have to play those guys to win this tournament. You most likely will, but he's got the talent, I think, to beat either of them. And then it just comes down to doing it, which is obviously the biggest task. But I think Lorenzo Musetti could win the French Open this year, That's why I am mentioning him here. And the last guy, and I might take some serious flack for this in the comment section. People might not consider me a serious YouTube tennis commentator anymore, but I really think that Stefanos Tsitsipas, I almost choked on it saying it, I know. Stefanos Tsitsipas could win the French Open. I just believe he has it in him to still win this tournament. I know that he's in the lowest form he's been in like 8 years, maybe in his whole career with confidence. But if he gets to a quarter or a semi, I think that confidence starts to build. He starts to get the feelings back that he's had before at this tournament, making the final, being up 2 sets to love on Djokovic. Maybe he gets nightmares if he's there again. I don't know. But I believe he could win. And I know that's ridiculous. He's the 20th seeded player right now, behind the likes of Tiafoe, Fils, Shelton, Paul, Medvedev, Runa, Demonauer, Draper, Fritz. Yes, I didn't pick any of those guys on my list because I don't think they can or could win this year. Happy to be proven wrong, but that's my list. Can winners, the men who can win, I know they can. Sinner, Alcaraz, Zverev, Ruud, could win. Djokovic, Musetti, and Tsitsipas. Those are my thoughts, kind of power rankings going into the French Open 2025. Let me know yours down in the comment section below. Thanks for being here, and I cannot wait to get rolling with our actual 2025 French Open coverage here on The Slice. It's major time.